everybody, my name is Professor Rad, and today we're going to talk about multiplicative identity and multiplicative inverses. So earlier when we were looking at properties in chapter 4 of this class, we talked about the additive inverse, and the additive inverse of a number is its opposite, right? So if you have positive 4, the additive inverse is negative 4. If you have negative 7, the additive inverse is positive 7. And they're inverses because when you add them, you end up getting 0. So today we're going to talk about, well, what is the multiplicative identity? So what is the multiplication analog to 0? And what are multiplicative inverses? So to build us some tools to get there, we have a theorem that says the product of a number and its reciprocal is always 1. So let's see why that happens. So let's look at 3/4 as an example. Remember that the reciprocal of a fraction means just flip it upside down. So the number that was in the bottom goes in the top, and the number that was in the top goes in the bottom. Now when we multiply fractions, we multiply across the top and across the bottom. So 3 times 4 is 12, and 4 times 3 is 12. Now 12 twelfths is a number over itself, and that will always give you 1. So there was nothing magical about the fact that we had 3/4 here. But when you take the reciprocal, you're essentially going to end up with the same factors on the top and the bottom, right? Because this 3 becomes a factor of 3 here, and this 4 became a factor of 4 up here. So you end up with the same numbers up top and up bottom, or down bottom, so you're always going to get a number over itself. So any number times its reciprocal is always going to get you 1. So that's going to lead us into our definition. So the multiplicative identity is 1. In math, an identity is something that results in no change. So the multiplicative identity is 1 because if you multiply a number by 1, nothing happens, it stays the same, right? 5 times 1 is 5. 1,000,000 times 1 is 1,000,000. 2/3 times 1 is 2/3. So anything times 1 stays the same. So that means 1 is the multiplicative identity. A non-zero and its reciprocal are multiplicative inverses. Again, and that's because, as we just sort of demonstrated up here with 3/4, if you take a number times its reciprocal, you get 1, you get the identity. So in this example, they just want us to state the multiplicative inverse. So in other words, they want us to state the reciprocal. That's all this means. So the multiplicative inverse of 11/7 is 7/11. The multiplicative inverse of a -1/4 is a 4/1. And that's going to simplify to just -4, because if I divide 4 by -1, I get -4. And then 3, I can think of that as 3/1. So to state its reciprocal, or its multiplicative inverse, I'm now going to get 1/3. And there you go. That's all we have to do. Now, just as a reminder regarding notation, we saw that an exponent of -1 means reciprocal. So I could write this as 11/7 -1 is 7/11. So we can still use that -1 exponent as a way of explaining multiplicative inverse. All right. Now, in our next video, we're going to talk a little bit more about fractions that look like this, fractions that have negatives in them. So I'm looking forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, have a great day.